Hello and welcome to VOA's Red Carpet. I'm your host Jackson Vunganya with the latest in celebrity news in fashion, sports, film and television from around the world. Let's begin. And let's start with the FIFA Women's World Cup underway in France. Strong play on the field, but frustrations off the pitch over unequal pay for women. Some of the players expressing their displeasure over this issue include the first ever Women's Ballon d'Or award winner, 23-year-old Norwegian star Ada Hegerberg. Ada is sitting out the tournament in protest. All 28 members of the reigning champion US team have filed a lawsuit against the US Soccer Federation claiming gender discrimination over their pay. Even the highest paid female player, Brazil's Marta da Silva, makes just 0.44% of what Lionel Messi makes. Basically, the ladies are saying, show us the money. We'll keep you posted on this protest over women's pay as we watch out for the three African teams in the tournament: Nigerians Super Falcons, Banyana Banyana of South Africa, and the Indomitable Lionesses of Cameroon. And let's head to the world of Broadway. History was made at the 73rd Annual Tony Awards as Ali Stroker became the first person in a wheelchair to win the theater's top prize. Stroker, paralyzed from the chest down due to a car crash when she was only 2 years old, won Best Performance by an Actress in a Featured Role in a Musical in the New Agey revival of Oklahoma. Stroker made her Broadway debut in a revival of Spring Awakening in 2015 and says that it is high time for disabled people to be represented on stage.
You know, it's cool because of social media, you're able to connect with a lot of people, and I've just heard from a lot of young aspiring performers and actors and singers and musicians that have disabilities, how exciting it is to see someone in a chair on Broadway and on television and working, and how that really motivates them and inspires them to keep going.
As for the other winners, The Ferryman won Best Play, Headstown took home Best Musical, while 87-year-old Elaine May won Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role for the Waverly Gallery, and Santino Fontana won Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role for Tootsie, both of which were their first Tonys. More awards, this time for Denzel Washington, who was honored with an American Film Institute Life Achievement Award at a star-studded dinner at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. The two-time Oscar winner was brought to his feet during a rousing performance of Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come by Jennifer Hudson. The evening included speeches from Michael B. Jordan, Cecily Tyson, Antoine Fuqua, Morgan Freeman, and Spike Lee.
It's really, I kind of think maybe demeaning to break down what he's done into 2 or 3 sentences. I'm not going to do that. I mean, if you really want to see who he's about, you got to look at the movies. Look at the films. That's the best answer. Look at Malcolm X.
Washington says his career has not been defined by others, but by himself.
The enemy is the inner me. So it's not competition. You know, I'm not competing with anyone. It's not a race. I'm trying to improve and run my own race and do the best I can.
America's National Museum, the Smithsonian Institution, is getting a new leader and making history in the process. The institution's new director, Lonnie Bunch, is the first African American, and Mr. Bunch says that the Smithsonian should be a place to help everyone understand a diverse America. Here's more from VOA's Deborah Block.
The founding director of the Smithsonian Museum about African American history will become the 14th secretary to lead the world's largest museum, education, and research complex. As the head of 19 museums and the National Zoo, Bunch called the move humbling and exciting and said his time at the African American Museum will serve him well.
It is something that had never crossed my mind to do, but it also makes me feel good because I get to give back to the institution I care the most about, the Smithsonian.
Bunch has served in 3 Smithsonian museums, where he says he has touched upon all aspects of the Smithsonian. Traditionally, the secretaries of the Smithsonian have been scientists from outside the organization. Bunch said he was pleased that an insider like himself, who is a historian and curator, was selected.
I wasn't even sure when they asked me to go for this job that they'd hire somebody like me, that they'd hire an insider.
But it was the Museum about African American History that thrust him at the forefront, building it from the ground up and opening it in 2016.
We felt it was crucial to craft a museum that would help America remember and confront its tortured racial past.
Another Smithsonian museum is also dedicated to a minority group, the Native American. Kevin Gover, the head of the museum, says Bunch has impeccable credentials, and he is pleased to see a person of color in charge of all the museums.
It is momentous that the Smithsonian for the first time has at the head of the organization a person of color. It's been a very, in some ways, conservative and very white institution in its leadership throughout its existence.
Well, my whole career has been about kicking down doors and breaking ceilings and trying to help people understand that both African American culture and African Americans are central to who we are as Americans. My hope is that this will give people a sense of optimism and hope.
Gover says he expects the new secretary will continue to find ways to connect the diversity among the various museums.
We're experts here at my museum on the Native American perspective. But if we tell a story without considering the African American perspective or the European American perspective or the Asian American perspective, we have not done as complete a job as we should have.
Bunch says no matter what happens, the Smithsonian will always be that place to help us understand a diverse America. Deborah Block, VOA News, Washington.
There's a new Netflix series that has a lot of people talking. That is director Ava DuVernay's project, When They See Us. 5 men convicted of the rape and assault of the Central Park jogger are freed from years in prison after someone else confessed to the crime. DuVernay tells their story in the new series, chronicling the trials leading up to the wrongful conviction, the exoneration, and the settlement reached in 2014. Following a screening of the first episode in Hollywood presented by Netflix and Oprah Winfrey's own network, you bet Oprah herself got a chance to interview DuVernay, the cast and the 5 men formerly known as the Central Park 5, and now the Exonerated 5. In an interview that was full of laughter and tears, they discussed how change is needed when it comes to racism.
You know, here we are, 30 years later, and not too many things has changed. You know, like you said, we're all connected.
Yeah.
We're just a modern day Scottsboro boys.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all the same thing. So I'm so happy and ecstatic that we can start the conversation now and to make sure there will never be another Central Park 5 and make sure we have the platform to make sure of that. So I understand what Intron means. It is bittersweet because watching this is painful, but it's necessary. Right. This needs to be watched.
Yeah.
We need to make sure things change now.
As the conversation continues on women and careers in the film industry, it looks like there haven't been many women directors in the past 12 years. According to a new study by the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative, 3% of the directors of animated movies were women, and Kung Fu Panda's 2 Jennifer Yu Nelson was the only woman of color. But when it comes to producing, things were looking up. In the last 12 years, 37% of producers of animated movies were women. One of the most successful animated franchises in history is back for another installment, with Tom Hanks and Tim Allen returning for Toy Story 4. They are joined by Tony Hale of Arrested Development as a new character called Forky. But what is it about this film that has connected generation after generation with these characters and storylines? Hanks explains the way films have stood the test of time.
Yes, they live in this timeless amber that is exactly what it was then and remains now. I just happened to be watching it with my Toy Story 2 with my granddaughter, and she was seeing it for the first time, and she was 100% enthralled and involved, and it always delivers. It doesn't look dated at all. There's no aspect of it. There's no nostalgia to it. It just is the story that immediately sucks you in.
And Tim Allen described how they carried the story forward in the fourth movie.
And then the trash.
From the inside, it was Toy Story 3 was definitively the end of it. And the end of it was the waving on the porch. That one scene was it. But for some reason, the crowd, both of us watching it and the audience, thought that Andy wasn't really saying goodbye to that toys at that little girl. And she bent around the parent and she looked at him and she had the sweetest face. And, oh, maybe she'll take care of the toys. And all of a sudden they caught that idea that, God, maybe it's her story now, and that's where we are.
The film is set to be released in the US and in the UK on June the 21st. Let's turn to some African fashion. Dakar Fashion Week is in its 17th edition, and the event has become a prime destination for designers and fashion lovers. Alison Lekogo Fernandez has our story from Dakar. Check it out.
An orange and black collection, symbols of fire and royalty, decorated with painted fabric to pay homage to the African woman. Christened African Queen, this collection was created by two Ivorian childhood friends who launched a fashion venture 2 years ago with a vision to brand the African identity.
We used to often wear Western clothes, but we too have wonderful talents, a wealth of treasures that Westerners use to design products. So why not use them ourselves by adding a touch of modernity?
The creativity of African fashion is now attracting attention worldwide. Over the last decade, the African continent has been referred to in haute couture collections showcased on the most prestigious runways of Europe and North America.
I think there is a real revolution in African fashion. African fashion is now seen differently all over the world, and Africa is now the heart of the African industry, in full bloom.
But when the first Dakar Fashion Week was launched, the craze was far from assured. It took Senegalese designer Adama Paris a lot of confidence in the future to start the event 17 years ago. Almost 2 decades have passed, and she has seen many changes.
Apart from the European or African craze, the internet was a game changer for all of us. We can be now in Kolda, Senegal, or Bujumbura in Burundi and sell a dress in New York, thanks to Instagram, the social networks. E-trade is still a very difficult business in Africa, but it's now possible. Before we were locked in, we did not have access to shops or Lafayette galleries. Now, every creator has potentially his or her own shop.
The Dakar Fashion Week gives young African creators more visibility and access to markets. 30 of them came from 14 African countries. Some others came from the United States and France. And for a week, Dakar became a world fashion capital.
And now, before we go, let's check out the visuals of Yemi Alade's new music video, Bounce. The Nigerian Afropop sensation recently hit the 100 million views mark on her YouTube platform, making her the second Nigerian artist just behind Davido to achieve that feat.
Baby, for your head like bandana. Make I show you my Ghana style. Charlie Aquaba. On the beat, bounce. Head bounce. Shake body, bounce. Head bounce. When you see the whole body, bounce. Head bounce. On the beat, bounce.
And thanks for watching VOA's Red Carpet. I'm your host, Jackson Vunganyi. Have a great weekend, everyone.